Cities in Motion 2 tips. These are tips that I made for the game Cities in Motion 2. The best way to move people is using trains or subways, but they are expensive to build. So my strategy in the game was to try to be able to build my first subway as quickly as possible, because once you do that, you'll start to bring in more money and move a lot more people. Monorails are very fast. I really like building monorails. I believe you have to buy the DLC. It's perhaps $3 to purchase it. Buses are slow, but you can use them to connect winding routes. So, for example, normally a route goes in a straight line, makes a few turns here and there. But what you can do is you can look at your transportation map after you've built a lot of routes, and you can use buses to connect all the areas that don't have any transportation. So it would be like the bus could go from here to here to here to here in just random directions. Ferries are not very useful. I do have ferries, but it's going to be rare that you have a specific use for them. And if you have to pay for it separately, my advice is save it for last. You can build elevated roads, including using highways through the cities. So what I would do is I would build an elevated road, go over the main road into the city, and then I would build off ramps and on ramps within the city. Usually you want to do it after you've built a tram line or a bus line. You can do it before, but it's going to be a lot more difficult to add the tram underneath. You can build tracks on highways for trams. So in my current map, I have tracks on the highway, and the trams ride on those tracks. But there was a problem with it. The trams do move very quickly, but if you have a traffic jam on the highway, then you're going to have a problem. There was an issue that arose with the system I created, but I don't remember what it was because it was too long ago. Some landmark buildings will have high demand and heavy traffic. So you can put in landmarks, you can get special buildings that have like 600 workers. And when you put it down, it won't immediately fill, but over time it will. And you want to put them near highways. You want to put them near your transportation, like the subways. And a lot of people will go to those buildings. Try to buy vehicles that carry the most passengers. So there's a problem with the scheduling. The work week is Monday through Friday, but the people that go to work on Friday, they're still going to be waiting for the bus on Saturday and Sunday. So you're going to have that issue. You want to keep those buses going every day, all day. And I think that the vehicles that carry the most passengers are the best option because you're going to have a lot of buses sitting in traffic. And when they sit in traffic, the speed of the bus doesn't matter. You know, the speed only matters when there's no one else on the road. But once you get traffic jams, you're going to need to move the most people. You got to be careful when you route vehicles because if they cross over, you can get a deadlock. For example, if you make a left turn over your route, a bus could get in a traffic jam and then block another bus on the same route. And if that happens, none of the buses are ever going to move until you go and sell some of them. So you want to make right turns when you turn those vehicles around as much as possible. And I'm not saying that it's the only way to do it, but I guess you could do it with a left turn also, but you can't. You do a right turn. No, well, you know what? You're going to have to look at, or is it you have to do a left turn? Yeah, it depends on how you route it, but you want to make sure that you don't cross over your lines. A depot can be entered three ways, from the left, the right, and from across the street. You really want to take advantage of all three, and I'm guessing that across the street is the fastest way in and out. Even if you got to run trains around the block, it's worth it to get them to queue up if you have a busy depot. And you want to use waypoints. Learn to use waypoints because when you enter or exit a depot, you can line up using three different lanes, and it will block traffic in other parts of the neighborhood a lot less. And also, you could have one lane for trams going south, another one for trams going north, another one going east, another one going west. It's better to use many depots than just a few, because if you only have a few depots, they'll get congested. So what you'll have to do is build many depots. And there's been many times where I've had to transfer a tram or a bus to another depot because I had to build a new depot and then move some of the routes out of the old one into the new one. Routes can be shared on long stretches, but at intersections, shared routes can be congested. Now, what does this mean? Think of a highway. A highway is a long stretch. If a bunch of trains use the same track for a long stretch, not that big of a deal. It's when you have intersections that a lot of trains on the same track going different directions are going to get congested. So you don't have to build double track all over your map. Just build multiple tracks near the intersections, at least when you start out. Build footpaths as bridges so pedestrians can cross over the roads without waiting for the traffic lights and without blocking traffic. You could build one main hub for all vehicles or build many non-intersecting routes. I'm sure you've seen it before. You can make one hub that has, 10 bus stops or 10 tram stops, and all the trams go to a central location and the passengers transfer to another line. I've done it before, but I really don't like that design. You can download maps or design your own. It took a long time to design my own map, and I never got to play it, and I never finished it. Traffic increases as population increases, so you want to build sensible routes, and more people will ride transit. For example, you build your first route. When you build your second route, you want to make sure it intersects with your first route. So that, because your first route is going to transfer a limited number of people. But when you cross over with a second route, you're giving people 2 times additional options in order to go to work or go to where they live. And it will, 2 routes that cross over that share at least one stop is going to carry a lot more traffic than 2 separate routes that don't cross over. Once you're earning profit, save the game, run it overnight as you sleep, and in the morning you might end up with a lot of cash. That's a trick I use for a lot of video games. And if you don't end up with a lot of cash, then just reload your game and try it again. Make sure your bus stops do not cause buses to block side roads when they stop. If you put your bus stop too close to the corner, the buses could block the side road. And in the old version, it would happen when a bus would stop to pick up passengers, the buses in front of it couldn't leave the side road. So you want to put your stop in a little bit. You can put multiple bus stops in a row, and buses can pick up and drop off passengers even if one is stopped behind the other. So you put a bus stop, and then one bus length behind it, you put another bus stop, and then one behind that, you put another bus stop. And what will happen is as the buses come in, one will go to the first bus stop, another one might stop at the second bus stop, and it can leave while the first bus is still picking up and dropping off passengers. Doesn't always work, but it does work sometimes. You can have bus routes that go on the highway or get off and on the highway to pick up passengers. You can put the bus stops right on the highway. People will walk on the highway. So highways are a great way to move buses around at a high speed. Subways move a ton of people, however, monorails are pretty good too when you're starting out. I highly recommend monorails. Monorails are the best way to move people at the start of the game until you get to subways. Buildings only grow along roads that have sidewalks. Remember that when you place your roads down. If the road doesn't have a sidewalk, buildings will not grow next to it. You can build long entranceways to depots across rivers. So if you have an island and there's a river, your island, build a bridge to a depot across the river, and it gives you a place where all the trams can line up on top of the river makes it easier for them to queue up to get into the depot. You can create zones and have a surcharge if someone enters a different zone. So you've got like 3 or 4 different zones, you make different colors. And what you can do is if someone goes a long distance, like from one island to another, you make it a different zone and then you have them pay a surcharge, which brings in more money once they enter the other zone. Tram tracks and train or subway tracks can connect. Subways can go on to surface streets. So some of the tracks can connect together. So the subway can come to the upper level and drive on a train track or maybe a tram track. I don't remember which ones connect and which ones don't, but you can try it out and give it a shot, and you'll see that it does work. Okay, that is Cities in Motion 2 tips. You can join the forum at my website, which is cheapbooks.cc. Go to the video game section. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.